Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Cerebral conversations on disability liberation and integration. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cerebral Conversations, episode 21. This is Cerebral Conversations, conversations on disability liberation and integration. I'm CJ Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Ron, I haven't done this in a while, but it's time.
It's time
To get
Cerebral.
boom! I kind of missed that. See, I haven't been on my A game lately, which we'll get into, but first I want to hear about the adventures of Ronald Jackson, the myth, the man, the legend.
Well, this week I went to Edward's Apple Orchard despite the rain. And I got to taste test a bunch of cool stuff. And of course I bought donuts.
Now, okay, for those of you that do not live in the Rock River Valley area, Edward's Apple Orchard is like an enigma around here. People just get this like crazy look in their eye as soon as the leaves start to change because they're like Edward's Apple Orchard, and they have, you know, just like, I'm sure every area with, you know, a agricultural background has their own apple orchard that makes probably the same freaking apple cider donuts that they have, but we're like, no. Every person is like, no, these donuts are the greatest thing ever. But these donuts are really amazing. Like, they're
It's almost like a pilgrimage to the apple orchard.
It's an agricultural mecca.
Every year.
So, you had the apple orchard. Anything else going on?
I'm not doing so well in the football pool, but that's a different story. The apple orchard was cool just because they have a lot of old artifacts upstairs, like cars from the 1940s and old chimneys from the 30s. And
old torture devices.
They had pictures of the tornado from a few years back.
Well, more like 40 years back.
Yeah.
So you just, you know, got back to your agricultural roots.
Yes.
You know, especially since you're rocking the Bob Marley again.
Rasta.
Yeah. Well, I felt really bad about last week's episode because there were so many technical difficulties, but on top of that, you'll notice that the incessant like came back. And part of that was of my insane bout with insomnia. I struggle with insomnia. I have since I was probably like 2 or 3 years old, and it's been really bad the last 6 years or so. And I found out that it's very common with in the spectrum of cerebral palsy. But I haven't been sleeping that well, and man, has it affected my mental faculties. And also, my emotional stability was insane. Been just like super grouchy, and like I'll cry all the time. Also, I finished The Office because it just got the final season got put on Netflix. And I was like crying. I was like, Jim and Pam, just like bawling my eyes out because I'm up all night and everyone else is asleep and I'm lonely. Like, Jim and Pam are my only friends. And I was really like grouchy and rude to Alicia. It's just been a weird week. But I want to thank you guys for just really going crazy about last week's episode. We had 90 views in 1 week, which is pretty big which is a pretty big deal for us.
I was joking with CJ that maybe we should have pretty ladies on the show more often.
I think we should.
I think we should. Seems to help.
Yeah, I think we might have to consider bringing Alicia back for a second interview.
I think so.
Maybe some viewer questions and whatnot. Yeah, other than that, I don't know if you can hear it on camera, but I took in the cat, Baby. This is day 3 of having her, and it's been interesting. I mean, I'm cleaning up cat litter stuff, and it's just, and I'm like incessant about it, and like the hard part for me is like when it goes to the bathroom, you gotta let it like sit there for a while and dry, and it's just like I'm paranoid about my house smelling, and I'm constantly vacuuming, and the thing just meows incessantly. It's just, ugh, like I don't know how I'm gonna have kids.
I'm sure this will help your insomnia a lot, CJ.
No, it won't. The cat, it like hogs my bed. I don't know how a cat hogs a bed, but it does. Like I don't know how I'm gonna handle having children. I mean, if I can't handle a cat, how am I gonna handle like a human being? Ugh, man. Anyways, so what are we talking about on this week's show? Continuing our awesome series on love, sex, and dating.
We are delving more into sex and dating in the crippled world by discussing the social pressures of dating placed upon us by society.
Yes, and this isn't just a problem for crippled brothers and sisters. Able-bodied brothers and sisters feel this as well.
Yes.
But we're going to more specifically talk about it within the ethos of living with disability.
Yes.
And I remember at a really young age, I think I may have shared this story before, but when I was about 9 years old, I remember waking up one day and I was watching MTV, and I was like, I think I was like watching, I don't know, like, what was that one show? It was like, oh man, what was that one show with Jenny McCarthy?
Singled Out?
Singled Out, yeah, that was it.
Yes.
I remember watching that, and I remember like going upstairs, like, it's time I get my life together and get a girlfriend. I remember thinking that at 9 years old, and then like I remember for like the next few weeks during the summer, I just like wore these dress clothes that I had, and I would go around my neighborhood like trying to be really nice to girls in my neighborhood, like get like picking them flowers and like opening up doors for them, because I thought that's what you did to get a girlfriend. Did you feel any pressures like that?
I remember my biggest influences were talk shows. So I remember like trying to be super nice to every girl I met just so I wouldn't go on a talk show and be ostracized by the audience, because I had this insane fear that one day I'd be ostracized because I never got a girlfriend.
Yeah, and like I find that to be a really big fear when I talk to other crippled brothers and sisters. And as I got older, I found that people were always talking to me about like, hey, I know this one guy in a wheelchair, and he's really great. He has a job, and he's married to an able-bodied woman. And it was like, oh, so that's what I have to do. That's what I have to do to be accepted here.
That's the bar that society sets.
Yeah, and I think that especially in the world of being crippled, that the desire for companionship, just like anybody else has, that the line of companionship and being a life partner, and love and romance gets muddled, where people out of loneliness put the relationship up on a pedestal. And that's something that I've really struggled with throughout my life, and um, I even have gone to like the opposite extreme of like being really needy to being like super self sufficient. Like I don't need anybody. Like there was a period of time in my life where I was like dead set on being celibate.
Right.
Have like you had any of those experiences?
Well, as you know, and the audience may not know this, but I recently got out of a relationship where I realized that I put the relationship on a pedestal just because, like, it was something of value to me for normalcy. It wasn't because I. It wasn't because I felt loved necessarily, or because the other person like valued me as a partner. It was more the fact that this was a relationship and it made me feel normal to be in a relationship.
I often find because I had like a lot of really unhealthy patterns of getting in like weird emotionships, especially through like meeting people long distance through the
Mm-hmm.
internet. And I like would meet people in really weird ways. It wasn't like dating sites usually, although we'll get into that later.
Yes.
But so I would find that I would really like just having that thing to focus on, that there was this person that I could focus my attentions on, and it would allow me a space and a freedom to kind of be CJ outside of the social constructs and the pressures and the preconceived notions of having disability.
I know for myself it almost became like a job because I was always trying to tell this person why what she thought wasn't true,
Mm-hmm.
even if in hindsight it was true.
Mm-hmm.
So it became like this vicious cycle of trying to ease her fears, but also trying to make sure that she understood the reality of dating someone with a disability. So it was a very unhealthy dichotomy between the two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's really difficult to be that honest with yourself. And something that I have found is that I would overcompensate, which I would overcompensate in relationships. So I would like try to be very. I would try to fit into roles that I thought that they really needed, so to make up for what I felt was a lacking in not having a able body.
Mm-hmm.
And that would feed itself into that insecure uh, being a burden mindset where you feel like you're a burden to those around you. You feel like you're not worthy of love, and and really, I didn't see it until many years later. But it was because I had this notion and that a relationship was this goal for me to have a normal life.
Right. I also feel like many crippled brothers and sisters and even able-bodied brothers and sisters tend to accept poor treatment from potential partners just because they don't want to lose the status of being in a relationship. So they accept not being valued by the other person just because they would rather maintain this ideal that they are in a relationship without having to admit that they're not happy.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I think that one of the hardest things to really come to terms with is that a relationship doesn't fix things, and a lot of it just has to do with just societal influences. The things that we accept as true will eventually become a reality. So if we believe that the only way we can be happy is through a relationship, um, especially if it's like through a relationship with an able-bodied person, and it has to fit certain criteria and things along those natures, you begin to kind of I've I've noticed in my own life that I kind of begin to allow myself to believe certain things. Like, so I'll say that I'm holding up to a certain standard, but really I'm just accepting what I think I can get, which has led me into very unhealthy relationships, very unhealthy pursuits of relationships. Um, uh, and so what advice can we give to, I guess, not just crippled brothers and sisters, but able-bodied brothers and sisters as well?
I would say the biggest piece of advice I can give for anyone is to not make the relationship a goal, but have the relationship become part of your life so that the person you decide to pursue a relationship with is not such a primary focus in your life, but rather is included in your life. And you can share your life with that person rather than making that person your life.
Mm-hmm. Something that I would really just pursue, which for many of you watching this, you'll think it's easier said than done, and it is to really focus on you as a person and being the best person you can be, and you'll start attracting relationships instead of trying to build relationships. And that was like a big wake up to me, is that there's a difference between attracting potential relationships and trying to build potential relationships. I think that you build up a relationship, but you attract a person into a relationship, and there's a difference with that. And you have to do one before the other. If you're trying to build a relationship before you attract a person, you're asking to cause some major heartbreak to yourself and to others. I think another huge thing is that we as a society, but especially I know a lot of crippled brothers and sisters experience more ostracization, so they consume larger amounts of media and other influences, is to be careful about what media you watch, listen to, consume, because it does begin to affect what you perceive as reality and what you accept as truth, what you begin to desire. You know, if you're watching a lot of MTV, if you're watching a lot of things along those natures, like you'll find yourself wanting more relationships. Or if you're online and you're into, you know, certain role playing or like chat room stuff like that, like if you don't have healthy boundaries with that, it just becomes another place for you not to deal with the reality that you face and not to deal with things in your life.
I would say, to go along with that, just try to remember, as difficult as it might be, that media and the internet tend to romanticize relationships. So you don't have to be in a relationship like what you see on TV or what you hear about in a song. You can make sure that the relationship you are in is healthy for you and the other person rather than what you think it should be.
Absolutely, because that's something that have experienced and I see a lot is that people become unhappy with what they have because they're constantly chasing this idea of what they should have, which isn't real and there's not real expectations. And if I could just suggest, I'm actually reading this really awesome book that kind of deals with how media and consumerism has affected our society and our consciousness. It's a little outdated. It's called Culture Jam. It's by the head of adbusters.org, and his name is Cal Lesson. And it's called Culture Jam, and it's just about basically how media, advertising, films, music, TV, how it all affects how we view the world and how we view ourselves. And I've only been reading it a week or so, and it really has profoundly woken me up to a lot of things that I need to work on in my own life. Is there any kind of final thoughts you want to share?
I would just say, don't change who you are just to increase your chances of being in a relationship, because like we've discussed in the past couple weeks, there is a possibility that you will never find a relationship, but changing who you are to be in a relationship will almost guarantee that you will never be happy. So work on yourself, and then a relationship will likely come.
And if I could just add in super quickly, I think we also need to be okay with the fact that a relationship may never come. That doesn't mean that you can't be happy and fulfilled as well.
It doesn't make you less of a person just because you're not in a relationship.
No. And you have more money for candy.
True story.
All right, so Ron, we're going to wrap up episode 21, and you can check out episode 22, God willing, next Wednesday. So with that, you can write us. Did you know that they can write us?
They can write us.
They often don't, but you can write us your feedback, email, questions, any sort of thing that you really want at cerebralconversations@gmail.com. You can also check out our Facebook page. It's pretty rockin'. It's facebook.com/cerebralconversations. Did you know that we're on Twitter?
We do have a handle.
I forget what it's called. What is it?
At Cerebral Convos, I believe.
Yes, at Cerebral Convos. And you know what? They can actually delve inside the mind of CJ Campbell.
It's a scary place.
Yes, you can check out my personal blog, The Running Surge, at cjcampbell.tumblr.com.
And you can check out photos of me at the Apple Orchard at Ron Jackson on Facebook.
Smell the cinnamon apple goodness.
Yes.
All right, so until next time, keep it cerebral.
Peace.